Okay.
Thank you, Program Director, members of the National Executive Committee of the ANC Women's League. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen of the media.
This side, sit here.
Firstly, we note the leadership elected by the ANC through its democratic processes and a fair process. The ANC calls itself a leader of society, and it prides itself with being a non-racial, non-sexist organization. As we come out of the 54th conference of our movement, we are not thinking about the elite women, those that are already in the decision-making bodies, those that are already CEOs. We are thinking about an ordinary woman who is faced with poverty, an ordinary woman who does not have access to water, an ordinary woman who has a child that cannot go to a tertiary institution, an ordinary woman who is a farm worker or a domestic worker who cannot be able to pay fees for her children. We are talking of an ordinary woman who is faced by multi-dimensional poverty, which is also linked to unemployment, who is also linked to education and the issues of inequality. What then does this outcome mean to an ordinary girl from Mutu, Mkandule, Nguyeshe? In the 105 years of the ANC as an organization and a leader of society, we feel the ANC has failed the women of South Africa. The ANC believes strongly in non-sexism, and therefore this is a principle that was put into action by President Oliver Tambo, who we are celebrating this year. President Oliver Tambo formed a commission on the emancipation of women, and he served in that committee, but also he ensured that women were represented in decision-making bodies, and also he had a confidence in women. Now, we have to express our disappointment as members of the ANC, because we are members of the ANC before we are members of the ANC Women's League. The Women's League is at the center of bringing hope to women of South Africa, and we think that we've been able to drive the struggle for women's emancipation. We also want to take this opportunity and say We fought a good fight, and the struggle for the emancipation of women must continue. The ANC must take a decision on how women are going to be affirmed. This was a history in making for women in the ANC. For the first time, we had a female on the ballot paper for a presidential candidate. The fight continues, with women united and dealing with the issues that unite them. And our common goal should be fighting and defeating patriarchy and sexism and the marginalization of women. The ANC indeed has regressed on the issue of women. In 2017, as we celebrate the life of O.R. Tambo, who championed the struggles of the emancipation of women, we cannot be proud of this outcome. Patriarchy has once again reared its ugly head. Comrade Jessie Duarte made it to the top 6, and we are proud of her because we know her track record. He is one of the senior women in the ANC that are tried and tested, that are actually senior to some of our male comrades. But also, we want to say Comrade Jessie was able to make it because she stood with another woman. If she was standing with a male, she would have gone under the bus. And we would be sitting with an all-male top 6. And Comrade Oliver Tambo must be turning in his grave. And there is no doubt about that. The struggle to put a woman president was never going to be easy, and we knew from the word go. It was never easy when we gained our freedom. And starting from Codesa, there was a fight, and women had to come together, and we had to form a coalition. And again, the first conference of the ANC in Durban, we had to fight for 30%. And 50-50 did not come up as a gift to women. We came up with a 50-50 so as to ensure that we are not taken for granted. And we are convinced that the principle of 50-50 remains very relevant and at the core of the representation of women. Because women, if women of the stature of a Comrade Nkosazana, of Comrade Maite, of even a comrade Lindy Sisulu cannot be elected into the officials, it means a lot of work has to be done in the ANC that has a membership of more than 60% women. And we've seen this in the numbers of the membership of the ANC. We are a majority in the ANC and in the society, and we cannot celebrate an outcome that undermines the power of the women in the ANC. This is an attack on the gains of women's struggles and that of 23 years into our democracy. We have been dealt a blow. We want to call on all women to stand together. We understand that as women, we are not homogeneous. And we are still going to give an analysis of this campaign. But right now, we feel that men that were in the campaign that had the face of a woman made it to the officials, but that woman and her stature was not voted into the officials. Let us also thank Comrade Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma for selflessly availing herself. She was insulted, her credentials were trampled upon and reduced to being an ex-wife. It could not have been easy for her and her children, but she understood that this was not about her, but the continuation of the struggles of women to get into leadership positions so that we can change the quality of lives of ordinary women and the girl child. With all our hearts, we want to thank her. We want to thank the NEC of the ANC Women's League, the young women in the Women's League, our supporters, and ordinary women of South Africa. And we want to say to them, the struggle continues.
Thank you very much, President. We will then now take questions. I'm looking at the hands. I think I'll start here. You'll be number 2. You'll introduce yourselves. 3, I'll take. 4 and 5. Those my first. I'll come back.
My name is Sophie Mkwena. I'm the foreign editor at the SABC. I just want to check, in terms of the credentials, how many women were at conference as voting delegates, and the zebra method, did it apply from branches when the credentials were compiled? Secondly, are you likely to call a special general council to take stock? And should there be a call for the current leadership of the Women's League to resign? Will you accept that call because you have failed women?
Thank you. Thank you. Tidi Madia from News 24. Just 2 or 3 quick questions. The first one, do you think you failed in your strategy? I mean, the NEC at the beginning of the year made a decision about Dr. Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma, and there were women who were saying that you forced it down their throats, that they never had discussions about Dr. Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma or whether or not there should be another woman that they preferred. So I just wanted to get your views on your own strategy. Secondly, with regards to Dr. Nkosi Dlamini Zuma, do you not view it as having failed her twice? Because you could have helped her in Polokwane. The Polokwane factor would have maybe led to her being a woman president a long time ago. And thirdly, if it's possible, there is this quagmire that the ANC is dealing with over the SG position. I'm just hoping to get the ANC's views about the 68 votes and the implications and what should happen around that. Thank you.
Okay.
Samgelo Masego from ANCA. Yesterday we saw a video taken by our colleague Nicholas Bauer of President Jacob Zuma seemingly looking unimpressed that Cyril Ramaphosa was elected ANC president. What have you drawn from the president's expression yesterday? Was it of a person who's unifying or further dividing the ANC? And secondly, you as the president of the Women's League hail from KwaZulu-Natal. For the first time since 1991, the ANC in KZN has no official in the top 6. Does this reflect that the state in which the ANC, which you come from in KwaZulu-Natal, is in as no longer being the kingmakers in ANC internal politics? Thank you.
Okay, number 4.
My name is Sabelo Ndlangisa from Sowetan newspaper. It's all good to lament the failure of Mrs. Sulu to make it onto the top 6. But as the Women's League, you never supported her. You never supported the other candidate, Ms. Balekambete. Don't you think you perhaps failed them and it's too late now to be lamenting, you know, how they fared? Thanks.
Okay. Number 5 was at the back.
Thank you, Lest from ANCA. Did the Women's League vote consistently for all women on the ballot? Did Ma'am Dlamini vote for did Ma'am Dlamini vote for Lindiwe Sisulu? Oh, thank you very much. Thank you. Did the Women's League vote consistently for all women on the ballot? In other words, did Ma'am Dlamini, did you vote for Lindiwe Sisulu or David Mabuza?
Okay. All right. We'll then respond to the first set of questions, but even before responding, as members of the executive of the Women's League, we are not representing individual provinces. We are part of a collective, and questions that are directed at us are not therefore questions that respond to provincial issues, but collectively issues as they affect women and women in South Africa in general. So as we will be responding, we will avoid where you're making reference to President Batabile coming from KwaZulu-Natal. That one, we can leave it to the province of KwaZulu-Natal to respond to that.
Thank you. I think I'll pick up a few, and members of the NEC will add to those. I think voting is secret. So when people go to the ballot, go to the booth, they take their decision when it comes to voting. Secondly, at the beginning when we started with our campaign, we had 6 names. And amongst those names, there was Comrade Lindiwe Sisulu. There was Comrade Balega, there was Comrade Nomvula, there was Comrade Maide. And Nosiviwe. And the South African society know that a much as men are not homogeneous, women are also not homogeneous. And therefore, if you prefer to stand for a particular position that is supported by others, we are not going to campaign vociferously against you. Firstly, because you are a woman, but also, secondly, any member of the ANC can stand for a position in any structure of the ANC. So, the issue of KZN has been spoken to, but I think we have said that at conference there are democratic processes. And there are many conferences where we have not had leaders from other provinces. And this question was not asked. And I don't understand why it is relevant now. The issue of Comrade Jacob Zuma not impressed, I shame. That human being has I don't know what I can say about the whole question. He loves people get angry. He keeps quiet, people get angry. So I don't know why we should want to put or associate what we believe in to other people. If you have your beliefs about someone, hold them to yourself. Don't think that you are going to come here and ask us to analyze someone's behavior or response to something. So I really feel that the question is unfair. What we are proud of is that the President Jacob Zuma has been able to lead the ANC through very difficult and trying times. And he is an outstanding leader because even if within the ANC, NEC, there were people that were openly against him, he continued working with them and talking to them. And also, we are very proud of the pronouncement he has made about education. Because as women, we've been saying education is important for our children. And therefore, for a change, just see something correct. Just say something correct about someone who deserves that. So what we are looking forward to now as the Women's League, because it is our children that are suffering. It's women that are mostly single parents that are not able to take their children to tertiary. So we support that fully, and we are going to work towards it. One other issue that we are going to deal with is the issue of capitalism and patriarchy. Because capitalism perpetrates a patriarchy because you own the means of production, and women mostly are your slaves. And that is how you go up and gain a popularity. that we are going to fight. We are going to say to the ANC, we must attempt to fight non-sexism like we are doing with racism. Because also women are oppressed as women, as workers, and as mothers at home. The 68 votes, I don't know about the 68 votes, but what I know at a conference is that some people vote, some people leave, people make their choices on who they want to vote for, and therefore you can't just come up with a number and say this 68 must be looked for. You must be able to look carefully into that 68. But what we are also happy about is that all the people that were standing or stood for election committed themselves to accepting the outcome of the conference. Because once you start carrying a narrative that is going to create a negative mood at conference, you are not helping the ANC. We want to pass at the stage and move over. The ANC never died yesterday when there were elections of officials. The ANC lives on, and therefore we should ensure that the ANC is stronger. Then comrades, people that were forced down through the throats of members of the Women's League. The Women's League has its National Executive Committee. And in between conferences, the ANC and the ANC Women's League, NEC, is the highest making decision body. We had a meeting where there were representatives from provinces, all of them, and from regions, and only to one region had a problem, and actually that region said, can you give us an opportunity? We want to go and have discussions. And then secondly, one province said, can we go back and consult? And all other delegates, or in the Eastern Cape, the chairperson had a different view, and the secretary had a different view. And we tested the views of regions. And I can even still remember those that said they supported the decision taken by the Women's League, and those that wanted to go and talk. Sometimes talking is a delaying tactic. And as women, we need to be strategic. We know that South Africa is still a patriarchal country, and therefore we had to work hard to push our campaign. And women took a decision on who should be the face of the campaign. And once you have the face of the campaign, you have to move on. And once you have the majority saying, this is the line of march you are going to take, you move on. You don't wait for people to come back with poisoned ideas that are meant to stifle our progress. So, yes, we consulted, and we did not push any candidate through the throats of anyone. We had a meeting which was an extended meeting. Provinces, usually, it's a chairperson and secretary that attend NECs. But at that time, provinces had 5 representatives. So that was a fair representation of our structures.
Thank you very much, President. I will allow also other members to respond, but one other response to say whether we will call as a general council or a special council. We operate to have a constitution, so we will convene our general council in terms of the constitution of the ANC Women's League when the time comes. We will not resign as the ANC. We feel proud that we have cracked the wall for the first time in the 105 years of the ANC by having a candidate who is a member of the ANC but also a woman. And if you looked at the votes yesterday, we also feel proud that delegates of the conference did vote for that candidate. So the president was indicating to say it was not an easy way going up. We had to work around convincing the ANC itself, because in terms of the leadership of the ANC, even when you look at branch delegates, mostly they are men. If a branch has got 1 delegate, you'll find that it is a man, not a woman. If there are 2, the condition is that there must be 50-50 representation, then you get 1 woman. So the 60, which is the delegation of the ANC Women's League, would not have made that number of the votes that came up. So it is success to say our strategy did penetrate, and we will continue to make sure that even in the discussions at commissions, when we discuss the organizational renewal, the African National Congress must live up to what it is. It has to respect women, it has to empower women, it has to allow women to take up positions because they deserve them. Comrade Judy.
No, I'm covered.
Democratic centralism. Okay. Thank you very much. I just wanted to answer the issue of democratic centralism, which is the decision that is taken by the structures, the NEC. If the NEC has taken that decision, structures, the lower structures, goes and implement that particular decision. So there is nothing wrong in provinces and in that extended meeting where the region was represented. It was a democratic centralism decision that was supposed to be implemented by branches. Thank you.
We can now take the second round.
What about Buluwan?
Why did you support it?
No, I think that's your view. It's your view.
Can we be orderly? Yes, because it is only now where we fielded the name of Umama Nkosazana. Maybe it was yours from your branch, if you have a branch. But so here, this is the time that we went all out and campaigned for that name. And here we are today. We are disappointed by the outcome, and we're still going to move on and ensure that our structures really grow. I want to take from this side. I will have 1, number 2, 3, 4, 5. Can we take those first? I'll come back.
Liz Agatano from News 24. Just for clarity, Mamba Tabile, I just want to know what went into your decision to support Didi Mabuza as deputy president instead of Lindiwe, if Lindiwe Sisulu, if you believed that females needed to be in that top 6. Would it not have been better to support her instead of Mr. Didi Mabuza?
Amogelang Batsa from Bloomberg News. Just to follow up on that, do you regret perhaps not supporting Lindiwe Sisulu rather for that DP position? And also, just so it doesn't take another 100 years for there to be a watershed moment in terms of women representation on the top 6, do you plan on asking for any constitutional changes for quotas in terms of the top 6, women representation quotas in the top 6?
I'm Angelo Fick from ANCWL. My question is to the entire executive. So you've told us that you are going to go back and fight, and presumably that means fighting the patriarchy inside the party that gave us this very disappointing result. I have a very close relationship with 2 young women, Nomazwe, who is 10, and Lindiwe, who is 6. If the ANC's position, as we've seen it so far, is that the deputy president becomes the president, the ANC Women's League, unless it changes things, is at the least 10 years away from having a woman candidate possible. At the worst, 20 years if Cyril Ramaphosa gets 2 terms and Didi Mabuza as his deputy gets 2 terms. What will you do to go back into the ANC to somehow give women a chance, as you've pointed out, Ms. Lamini, given that you're 60% of the organization, given that you're 54% of the population, so that that 6-year-old doesn't have to wait 20 years for there to be women, plural, in both presidential and deputy presidential positions in not just the party, but the country. What is it that you will do as an organization to ensure that the women who are currently children, by the time they get to be women, see the fruits of your labors?
Oh, are you coming from the back?
Yes, I'm coming from the back. My name is Thabo Shola Mashao. I'm from How TV. To what extent, as the ANC Women's League, do you point a finger at yourselves, especially given that you have been absent on serious issues that were facing women advancement? Or when you participated in such debate, your view was seen as regressive. Let me just make an example. I think it was in August this year when the Women's League was saying it's not going to support the call to remove the former deputy minister Mduduzi Manana after the assault issue. And that message to society of a Women's League that is insensitive to women's issues, to what extent does it pull you back as a force of women's cause? And lastly, earlier on, Minister, you mentioned the fact that the males who made it on the ballot, who won yesterday, used women's faces. What do you mean by that? Thank you.
It was number 5. Lubabalo from CNBC Africa. I just want a quick clarity. Minister Batabile Dlamini, in your address, President of the Women's League, you said that, I quote, Comrade Jessie Duarte won because she was with a woman. I just want clarity on that. Was that because she was competing with a woman, or was it because she supported a woman? And does that mean that Lindiwe Sisulu was thrown under the bus because she supported a man?
Thank you, ma'am. It's Calvin Whittles from the Mail and Guardian. During the campaigning between the presidential candidates, the ANC Women's League publicly supported Dr. Dlamini Zuma, and the campaigns were quite polarizing. I wanted to find out, President Dlamini, whether you've called the new ANC President Cyril Ramaphosa and congratulated him and told him that you are willing to support him for his duration of his term. And then, is the ANC Women's League going to accept that there will only be one woman in the top 6 for the next 5 years? Are there any mechanisms at your disposal to change any of that? Sure.
My name is Andisiwe Makinana. I write for City Press. Minister Dlamini, a few weeks ago, you were addressing a rally in KZN. And in that rally, you insinuated that Mr. Ramaphosa is somewhat involved in the abuse of women or abuse of girls. Now, in the light of what you just said about the ANC Women's League being at the forefront of fighting abuse against women and children, do you still support him, having said what you said a few weeks ago?
You really dodged me from this side. I had 5 speakers. I ended up with 7.
Okay. The question of Didi versus Lindiwe could be the same question that is asked on the issue of Comrade Nkosazana versus Comrade Cyril. I think we need to try and deepen our understanding when it comes to the issues of gender equality and power relations. And we've been trying to say that South Africa is a patriarchal country. And even, I'm not trying to patronize you, young women at SABC and other media houses do experience the same thing. So if you talk about a patriarchy, it's like a demon that you cannot touch, but you find it in all important areas of life. You find it in the judiciary, find it in the media, find it in organizations, you find it in the family, which is the basic nucleus of the society. So this is their issue. And it is an issue that affects all women. And it should not be pushed to the Women's League, because the Women's League has been brave enough to come out and say, we are fighting, we want to fight in our organization. And it should not be used against the ANC Women's League. Yes. Because, for instance, why is the question of officials, of people resigning not being asked from the officials of the ANC? Because they are members of the ANC and they know that we are committed to gender equality and a representation of women. It should be asked from them, because they also believe in that. It should not be asked from us. The issue of having an NGC, we are due for an NGC next year. Yes, next year. And we are due for 100 years of women's struggles, because the Women's League was formed in 1918. And therefore, this has been fierce struggle, and we are not going to run away. We are going to carry on pushing and ensuring that South Africans understand why women should be liberated. We are going to carry on and ensure that women in the ANC, when they go to the booth, they are conscious of the fact that the person who is better placed to deal with the issues of women's emancipation is a woman of the stature of Comrade Nkosazana. But also, an unfair question is being asked. Why didn't you support Comrade Lind? And we don't want to talk about the fact that for the first time in the ANC, you have women freely standing for the position of the president. So that is a non-issue. An issue is to push us into the corner. The issue is to try and crush us so that we don't wake up the following day. And we are here to stay. The Women's League was not formed by us. There are 4 bears who fought very hard. 1956, male comrades in the ANC did not want the march, but it was very successful. So we should not be pushed into the corner. We are going by actually the people who are perpetrators of patriarchy. No, we are not going to allow that. It's really unfair. Officials are not a structure, but also we've been trying to ensure that we grow, because that is where most of the issues are discussed. But as the Women's League, we do from time to time have meetings with the officials of the ANC. But as we've said before, we are going to try and ensure that there is a commission on the emancipation of women, because again, it is structures that are going to make an indelible mark in our struggle, not individuals. Our struggle is not about Matabile, it's not about Comrade Togo, it is about the women of South Africa. Like the struggle of the ANC. It is not about the individuals, it is about a collective. And Chairperson, we have many lessons. There are many lessons we have learned in this process. And we've been saying that one of the things we need to do is to try and shape the discussions on patriarchy so that we can deepen the understanding of, firstly, women as well as men. And also so that we characterize the issues in a way that will find expression in the structures of the ANC. Yes, I'm going to support Comrade Cyril as the president of the ANC. The culture of the ANC is that when someone gets elected, you subject yourself to that individual. We have said we are members of the ANC before we are members of the ANC Women's League. So we are not going to come guns blazing when we know that there was a voting process, when we know that we have campaigned as the Women's League. So otherwise, we are going to contribute towards destroying the ANC. And I was saying to members of the Women's League, I'm happy. Women are very loyal in their nature. We are not going to hear of people wanting to form another organization because someone was not elected as president. We are not going to do that. We are staying in the ANC. The ANC is our home. So the issue of respect is very important. I think the person who spoke about the issue of Comrade Jesse was not listening carefully, so I'm not going to repeat what I said. Maybe the colleagues are going to help him. Then with Comrade Mdu, as the Women's League, we've said when there is an issue of violence against women, we are always going to support a woman. That is what we have said. Now, the issue is that you want to put words into our mouths. We are not going to allow that. If we take a position, we take a position. We talk to the person affected, and some of us are not even brave enough to pass the message of the Women's League to the relevant person. You need to have guts to be able to go to a member of the ANC and say, we are not going to support you. But also, there are issues of consistency that we have to look into within the ANC. When there is a case of abuse, we must treat it equally. There must not be those that are given special attention and those that are not given special attention. And saying that we were absent on the issue of Comrade Mdu, I think is hypocrisy. We don't say Jesus when you say things to us. Yes, we don't. So please stop those remarks that you don't pass to men. You must stop them. You want to demonize us. We are not going to allow anyone to demonize us, because our responsibility is to fight for the emancipation of women. Now, lastly, the issue of the support generally of Nkosazana, it was big. And maybe I know that if Comrade Nkosazana won the election with this margin, all the newspapers would be saying front page, it's not an issue. She got this percentage. But because it is the patriarchal media that is writing stories, it is finding a fault with us. That is how we think when we come to the issues of power and gender relations. Thank you, Chairperson.
I am not going to allow another round, because we need to go to commissions, because those commissions are going to assist us to deliberate more on the issues of patriarchy. It's not about women only. It affects our society. It affects women at home. It affects them in the communities. It affects women at work. it also affects even the distribution of resources. So we want women to be where the deliberations are. So I can see many hands. We can throughout the day entertain one-on-ones, but just as addition to some of the questions. Our central role as women is to still go back and mobilize society. We have a program that we are running as Women's League that was acknowledged at the opening of the conference, which is reaching to communities, to individual homes, called Molo Makelwan. That seeks to get into each household, because the extent of this patriarchy, you may only see at times when you have media statements that are attacking us as Women's League because we are already there. But there's a woman down there that we thought, when we are fielding a president who is a woman, it's somebody who understands what women go through, and is also going to give a heart or humanity at the level of decision making that would change lives of women. We will continue to fight. We will go back and look into what else we can do to enhance on what we can do as these women. But we want all women in South Africa, from all walks of life. So we'll be getting back. We've seen in the campaign, Mamongo Sazana, going to churches, going to, women who are in business, going to communities, women who are there at the lowest of the levels. So we'll continue to do that. And we'll continue to also assess our strategy, assess what was successful in it and what went wrong in some of the areas. But we have successes that we are able to point, as the President was indicating. The President also indicated on the men who have made up into the ladder of being officials, that men used the face of our campaign, and today they are in that structure. They did not pull the candidate up. They used it as a ladder for themselves. That one we are not shy to say. They used that as a ladder for themselves. It's our demonstration to yourselves to say, this is how patriarchy is rearing its ugly head in our society. Because that's the demonstration that you also get, be it at work, be it at home, be it anywhere and everywhere. It is something that needs to be fought. We'll still put up that fight as women. But we also want society to be behind us. We also want to get into society and fight with society, because this is a demon. It is just like racism, as was indicated earlier on. So we'll continue doing that. We don't regard this campaign as a failure, because it's a democratic process that has gone in, but it indicates that we are still behind in terms of fighting patriarchy in our society. So we are saying here, as we round off, we're going into those commissions. We want to raise this sharply, and we want the African National Congress, that we are also members of, to get into this kind of discussion and correct itself, because African National Congress is made up of members of the African National Congress. It's those members who need to correct the wrong that has happened in terms of the structure, as we have started developing or electing a structure for the national executive of the ANC. So it is also us as members of the ANC who have to go back and correct the wrongs that we have done. We hope it will not take a further 10 years to change this situation that has come out yesterday. Any other member? So we'll allow one-on-ones, but we have to go to commissions. And the Secretary General would have come out also of the steering committee to also have some of the interactions with the media. Thank you very much for now.